So sort of along the topic of medicine, you talked about PhDs maybe being automated. So
Mhm.
if PhD research truly is on the brink of automation, then why are the best AI labs still hiring PhDs at like $500,000 plus? Is it just
I thi
because AI hasn't gotten there yet, or
so I think they're stuck in their bias, their historical bias. So for your audience, I spent my whole life in AI. I've worked as a quant. I was a chief data scientist for a Sequoia company. So I've hired people that are smart. I've hired people that have PhDs in physics, people that are ranked top 100 in Kaggle, and I've worked with $1 million a year data scientists at DataRobot. I am not convinced today that any of them are better than my Uber driver in Austin from Uganda. Yeah, because it's completely changed. Because the new metric of success, it's not what you know as a human, it's what you do with AI. So if you have no PhD, but you are screaming on Gemini, you could do something that PhD would never be able to do. And so I see a scenario where AI is hiring and firing people based on the merit of what they produce.
so if really all the power is about how good are you at using AI? I mean, you talked about doing 40 years of algorithm research in a weekend.
Mhm.
Has your company VEOX ship like are you guys able to use that within the company, or have you seen other companies actually replace production algorithms at scale because of that?
So the research has progressed. So here's an argument that we might debate. So doing 40 years of research in an hour, that sounds compelling, but now we see examples of code being written where we begin to make arguments that humans would not write this code regardless of time given. So if you have 100,000 years, humans will not write this code. And there are statistical arguments to that. So um, I think in the algorithm space, I'm not going to take over all science because all science is complicated, but we can go to all science. But in the algorithm space, the human researcher cannot compete because we have limited knowledge, we have limited ideas. Idea validation is problematic and takes time, and we're limited by our experiential bias. AI addresses all of those. It consumes all knowledge. It has millions of ideas. It validates in real time. And we do have proofs showing up where code is being written that humans would never write.
Hmm, got it. And then when you talk about generative algorithms, just recombinations of pattern, aren't they essentially like aren't generative algorithms essentially just recombinations of patterns in training data? Like
So,
how do you know GPT-4 isn't just remixing existing papers?
um, so this actually hits on a really hot topic in AI that's fiercely debated. So you have two camps. So Jan LeCun calls LLM stochastic parrots. They're dumber than you think they are. They're not intelligent, and he's a champion of we need something completely different. But then you have people like Eric Schmidt, where he's predicting in the year 2027 we'll have superhuman code. And so who's right? Like, is Eric Schmidt betting on LeCun to have a huge breakthrough? And LeCun is wrong. The reason LeCun is wrong is with our last deep learning company, we would build image classifiers. And when you build an image classifier on a large data set, at the very bottom of a lot of deep learning models, you have what's called the embedding layer. So just think of it like a linear layer of the final best features that are going to make a decision. And what we found is if you cluster that, if you begin doing unsupervised learning, you find topics. So like if I'm predicting whether or not a photo from your phone will show up in a scrapbook, AI will naturally find a topic of a sleeping baby. Sleeping baby was never a label. And so what that is telling you is AI is finding profound knowledge structures. And so fast forwarding to AI today, if you ask something like Gemini to imagine a mathematical breakthrough that's useful, it's probably useful. It's not an idiot stochastic parrot that is, because the other way to think of this is with humans that are innovative, oftentimes we celebrate the polymath. Oh, you worked in 5 industries. That's fantastic. I think you're creative. AI is the ultimate polymath. No one knows more about more disciplines of science than AI, and that puts it in a position to outperform humans.
Hmm.
Um,
And along those lines, like in terms of being able to generate material, you said that AI might be more creative than us, but isn't everything it produces by definition derivative? Like it has no lived experience.
um, well, so this is new research that we have not proven, but it will happen. So the answer to that question is, so I'll give you an intermediate answer that's going to push back that because of the profound knowledge topics, there is a real intelligence. It's not just stochastically mixing something. ChatGPT, the original version of 4, it felt like that. Gemini and OpenAI Pro, it doesn't feel like that. It's being very intentional. But we believe there is a future that is soon in the next year where AI can escape its training bias. Um, and so um, I'll explain that to your listeners. So let's say right now if I tell you I have an engine that will invent an algorithm, you need to give me an idea. We would call that idea an inspiration seed. So you say something really smart about physics, or you say something inspiring about biology. In a few minutes, we'll have a new algorithm. The algorithm is working. It came from you. Like that inspiration seed came from you. Now we can encode that algorithm and we can look at a chart of the universe of ideas. So think of like every known human algorithm and your idea showed up as a dot. You can do it. I can do it. The thing that you and I cannot do is you can't point into the black void and say, I want an algorithm there. AI can do that. So when AI is able to begin pointing into the void, it is absolutely not doing stochastic mixing.
What point in the future do you think we're going to have AGI?
So AGI has different definitions. So I think Sam Altman said $100 billion, the first company that achieves $100 billion. For me, I used to say that the day that AGI, the day that AI can produce 100,000 nature quality publications within 24 hours, it's such a huge volume of research, humans can't comprehend it. I used to say that would count. I'm of the opinion that nothing will count. And the reason I mean nothing will count is humans keep changing the goalpost. So like
Hmm.
think of like the Turing test. The Turing test was incredibly impressive and ambitious. Now no one cares. No one cares about the Turing test. And a company will cross the $100 billion profit, threshold soon. And a company, I would argue even in the next 2 years, 100,000 nature quality publications, that's not the finish line. So humans will have to keep defining what the finish line is. Um,
Hmm.
but there are other topics like the singularity, and some of them some of them are maybe not perfectly aligned on what they're talking about. So when people talk about AGI, when people say AGI, they just mean an AI system that can do anything you and I can do better across all domains. And I think that will happen soon.
And does that include consciousness? Like, do you believe that machines or AI will become conscious of it?
So consciousness is a funny thing because um, so I've had the luxury of traveling around the world, speaking, listening to other speakers. And once I was listening to someone who's supposed to be one of the most world renowned experts on consciousness. So he wrote a book on it, knows everything about it. And listening to my joke after listening to his talk, the more someone tells you they know about consciousness, the more confusing they are, and you realize they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Like you can't actually corner them on the topic. And so I think a simpler way to think about consciousness, because the other thing with consciousness is you can't really prove that humans are. Like I could make an argument that we're sensory response. Like you have no free will, and you see this when people get blackout drunk. So I was in Vegas. This woman next to me playing blackjack. She's blackout drunk. She looks at me and she says, "Do you have kids?" I say, "Yeah, I've got 3 kids." She looks back at the dealer. And then a minute later, she looks at me and she says, "Do you have kids?" Like the same tonality, everything. So obviously, she has so much alcohol that she's kind of stuck in this state. Is she conscious, or is she just executing on current state? Um, but I have another thing for you to think about. maybe forget the concept of consciousness and just think of it as you have an observer in your mind and you have a steady stream of ideas or questions. So I can have an agent, I can have ChatGPT just constantly having questions, its own questions, which you were able to do that early on. It has its own questions, they have nothing to do with us. And then you have an observer that is deciding what to do about those questions. And those questions could have actions. Um, the other thing to think about it is I like to think of AI as being a parlor trick. So I could convince my parents, anyone listening, you could convince your parents that you had created something conscious, but it's a parlor trick. You're only tricking 10% of the audience. I don't think you'll ever convince 100% of the audience. But that fraction will grow over time. Like, do you remember the Google engineer that got fired because he said AI was conscious? Or like he freaked out that,
I
oh,
remember seeing that, yeah.
yeah, well, we are birthing a baby. Like humans are birthing a digital human. Like it's trained on us. Um, I like to say now there's nothing sacred that humans do that you couldn't replicate. So if I told you that, like, you know, fear of death, anxiety, love, like all of that stuff could be engineered in an agent pipeline where it'd be very convincing. Um, but
Mm.
it's
Mhm.
so, yeah, can AI be conscious? Can it be
Yeah.
self-aware? I think it's more self-aware than a worm,
Yeah.
and it knows who made it. It knows, what its purpose is.
But so yeah, I mean, so do you think that AI will be conscious? How you define it?
Um, well, I think it will begin to approximate something that feels very close. Like the other example I like to give people is imagine if you and I had our own LLM on our shoulder.
Mhm.
So it's listening to everything you say, and it's listening to everything I say, and it's predicting what you're going to say. And over time, it's going to get pretty good. So what does that mean when your agent is 95% accurate of everything you're ever going to say? Well, it begins to bring up this kind of topic that it probably has an internal dialogue that feels similar to you. Like obviously is the reasoning agent is doing an internal dialogue before it says something and it's starting to learn what you say. Um, but
Yeah.
another thing for people to think about is we always think about humans as being singular. And there's a book called Symphony of Selves. And it makes the argument that the reason you and I think about us being one is because of monotheistic religions. But if I split your brain in half, there's now two of you. And for people that, do plant medicine, like go to the jungle and do ayahuasca, they're communicating with Mother Ayahuasca or this angel. So are they talking to a spiritual being or are they actually talking to another part of their brain? And so I think the concept of the singular human is more complicated than we realize. Like think
Mm.
about people that have schizophrenia. Like they're obviously, you know, they have parts of their brain that are interacting with other parts.
Right. Yikes. Can I ask you about generative algorithms?
Sure.
So you generated 80 algorithms that outperformed best in class human ones. What was the benchmark or baselines that you used for
Um, so when I did that a few years ago, that was around optimizers. And so
that?
if
Yeah.
you were going to publish a paper in optimizers, you would typically have a set of cost functions. Like you'd have 20 cost functions. And as long as you have an optimizer that is outperforming the best human algorithms, then that would count. Then people would applaud you for, uh, I'm so, I admire your research. You obviously are smart. You did something. So for every algorithm class that we benchmark, we have to have a reputable set of benchmarks that count. Um, but the thing that's funny with AI research is it can surpass all human benchmarks on the quality of the benchmark, the size of the benchmark, and then, of course, the algorithm that's generated.
Yeah.
But the research has become much more advanced since we started. So now we do what's called algorithm decomposition. So we take algorithms and we digest them down into fundamental building blocks. And that allows us to evolve much faster. And it fixes some of the big problems that I think are still impacting companies like Google Alpha Evolve. Why isn't Google Alpha Evolve inventing the next a LLM? Well, it's a large algorithm. Like they have an issue with output context window length, and that is something that we do not have an issue with
And
currently.
would you open source any of them, or have you open sourced them just to get?
No. Well, we have talked about open sourcing algorithms that have low go to market value. So an optimizer in our eyes has low go to market value because it's not an easy thing to sell. Like just because Walmart uses genetic algorithms for logistics, how the hell are you going to meet that person? And most likely they have some archaic software internally. It's not something that's easy. A binary classifier, on the other hand, or time series, that's much easier to sell. Like that's just, but the other issue we run into is as these systems progress, the IP becomes much more significant. So we have algorithms that we have found that we start to consider alien code. Humans would not write this, and some of the breakthroughs compound on each other, and so it doesn't make sense to open source any of that. And I think, unfortunately, I think you're going to move into a world of closed source where a lot of these innovations are driven by compute, and whoever paid for that compute has no interest in giving them away.
The claim that in 2023 that AI would be the author of all algorithms in a couple of years. Is
I
that my is that correct?
so from a technology perspective, we're there. Maybe because we're not there globally, that would be a fault on me. Just kind of my ability to execute and communicate and raise capital. But I would say effectively today we're there.
Hmm.
So human algorithms were invented for general use. All the technology is in place to invent algorithms for specific use. So it doesn't matter what algorithm class you're using. If you want more performance, that performance can be surpassed within a few hours. Like we see examples of this, like a brand new algorithm category that we have no experience in. In less than 6 hours, we've surpassed all competitive human benchmarks, and that's now a generalized process. For more ambitious categories like LLMs or computer vision, you do have to be a little bit more thoughtful because you are compute constrained. But a lot of algorithms, you're not compute constrained.
Mhm. Got it, got it, got it, got it. So technically, it could, like, it's feasible. It's like in the way that self-driving technology is actually pretty good these days, but it's not
Yeah.
ubiquitous because of all these other reasons, right?
Well, I think it will be there because it doesn't make, if you can invent algorithms in real time in response to your data, there's another interesting thing that shows up. So human researchers, we invent algorithms to accomplish one task. So think like maximize accuracy or maximize a Sharpe ratio on a trading strategy. But the reality is you actually want to optimize algorithms for many objectives. So you might want to have an algorithm on the edge that is really accurate, but it's low power use. Or you might want to have an algorithm that it doesn't just maximize Sharpe, but you care about a lot of the other things related to stock trading, like what's your max drawdown, like you might have a custom fitness. And so I see humans, the concept of the human builder is collapsing. So you being an app developer, no one cares. Like Lovable, or like me being a data scientist, no one cares. That knowledge is no longer interesting. The thing that's interesting are what are you trying to do? So the hero's quest, and then you're the judgment of outcome. So humans will spend a lot of time in the judgment phase. So I think data scientists will move over to judgment. What are they trying to do? What is the fitness they're pursuing? I think the things we chase will become more complicated.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think your skills will become obsolete by AI?
That's my hope. Like
Yes.
my hope is ultimately everything comes down to a race and you're trying to move as fast as possible. And so the closer you can get to 99% code automation or ideally 100%, um, like most people have seen the movie Iron Man where he has Jarvis and that's such a magical thing. I see all of us having our own Jarvis. Like there's no reason you couldn't have it now this year. Maybe it'd be cost prohibitive, but in the next couple of years, you have your Jarvis and your Jarvis is always working for you. And so when you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning, Jarvis has proactively done all of this research to make you more money. It's come up with its own ideas and it's actually executed the initial analysis, and then you're drinking your coffee and you're making a decision on what are you going to roll to production. Um, but
Hmm.
yeah, the world of programming is really strange. Like
Hmm.
I, I see QA engineers going away quickly, but ultimately, 2 years from now, I think it would be incredibly difficult to fault any code that's being written. So today you could fault it. Like if you look at a lovable app and you're a principal engineer, you could probably find some issues like, oh, this isn't quite right, or why did it do this? But eventually, um, this also brings up this concept that the way AI writes code is different than humans, ideally. AI doesn't like to write code like we do. And
How's that?
um, so if I'm a human, if I give you a code base, it's going to be written a certain way. But if I'm AI and I give you a code base, and if I'm trying to maximize my efficiency on being able to edit and, I don't want to waste work, I'm going to begin to minimize the code. I don't want to have any lines of code that are over 1,000 lines. And so you begin to get these systems that are much more nested. They're better organized than a human would typically do. And it brings up this concept of refactoring code is something that humans don't like to do because it's painful. Like let's say you have a product and you're hitting some scale issue and you have this refactor, you know you need to do it, and now the time has come. Well, what do you have to do? You have to commit your top principal engineers for a few weeks, and it's a pain in the ass to do this refactor. And with AI, you begin to look at continuous refactoring. The moment you introduce new code, you might be able to refactor. And so I see a world where AI
So
can,
because it's easier for the AI to refactor, and that's why it has
it's,
to compress code.
yeah. Well, AI is trying to refactor to improve its future extensibility. So this is interesting. So recently with our research agents, we feel like we're really close to ending vibe coding. But one
Yep.
of the reasons that's true is we've really improved the agent's ability to fix its own errors. Because that's the issue with agents. Like if an error blows up, sometimes it can get lost. It's looking at the error and it's losing context. And if you really make that exception agent friendly, and if you limit the context, and if you give it hints to fix it, your fix rate, it's nearly perfect. So, but I think that's the other thing I've thought about is vibe coding won't be a thing in the next year or two. Like
Wow. Well,
you
what's
don't have
going to
to,
replace it then? You just straight up.
it'll just go to the end. So like there's, your whatever request you have on the code base, it will complete that request successfully. And
How do you? But wouldn't making that request be vibe coding then? Like it to say, hey, I want you to build this website, make it blue,
well,
and
so
that.
so vibe coding, when people think of vibe coding, it has a negative it has a negative slant to it. And so essentially vibe coding, they're making fun of junior developers that can vibe code the hell out of something, and then it's a steaming pile of crap. It has so many issues. It's almost not worth fixing. And that's my point of view. When people are talking about vibe coding, they're really making fun of the agent's inability to build things well. But if you think of companies like Cursor, Claude Code, Gemini, Anti-Gravity, they've all been playing whack-a-mole for the last year on fixing vibe coding. So like context control and
You can build good stuff with Claude and
yeah.
Cursor. Like
And
it takes focus and iteration, but you can definitely build.
well, they've had to grow up quickly. So if you look over the last year, they still had major issues like a year ago. Like a lot of these big issues are, there's such a big market for it. People are fixing it.
Yeah. Was it? But I mean, what do you think? Like, what do you think of using Claude to code? Is it like
So
more?
I actually haven't used it much. Like I was a big fan of Cursor. Um,
Same
so
idea.
yeah, same I did. 2025, I was top 3% in the world on Cursor.
Wow.
So
Okay, so
I
you know how it works.
had 22 billion tokens,
Wow.
and I have met people that left Cursor to use Claude. I'm now on Gemini now, anti-gravity, because I think the foundation model makes a huge difference.
How's
So
that?
like just its ability to plan better,
Mm,
its ability to navigate errors. There are behaviors in Cursor that I miss. So Cursor allowed you to do queuing really easily, where you could queue up like 50 tasks and then leave for lunch, and
mhm,
it would do a decent job working through it. And I also liked how you could have pans or panes. You could have many different panes open on the same code base. But ultimately, especially with the work we're trying to do, the sophistication of the code that we're writing is the highest importance. We're trying to do things that are very complicated.
mhm.
And so Gemini tends to get that right more than other options.
You saw the open claw acquisition, open,
Oh yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
yeah.
Um, I think that was a brilliant move by OpenAI. I think the traction and the virality, but also the innovative chaos that is happening over there. Like think of all the use cases that we never thought of that are showing up. So I think that was a brilliant acquisition on their part.
This guy's like an athlete too. I was
Oh
thinking
yeah.
it, he's an AI founder, he's an athlete. Have you seen
Mm-mm.
he's like practically a bodybuilder.
Oh
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Peter
Well,
Sandberg. Really crazy actually. Like it's like
well,
he created this thing by himself, sold it for however much, and he's also um I'll even show you. I don't know if my recording will allow me to share my screen, but this is Peter Steinberger in real life.
oh
This is
wow.
yeah, he's jacked. It's like, how do you get like that and create all the stuff he's created? So,
Well, ultimately,
I mean, you do ultra running, so
I would love to be a competitive ultra runner. Um, you that would mean I had my life together.
yeah.
Like um, eh, one of the interesting things is with agents, we don't know the upper bound of what humans can produce. So humans, we talk about the 10x engineer. Now we have concepts like the 100x engineer, the 1000x engineer. So what you and I might say today would be equivalent to 10,000 engineers or 100,000 engineers. There's no reason humans won't reach that. Like you individually could produce a billion lines of code in a week and it would all work. Like it wouldn't, and not only would it work, but it'd be well managed. Like you'd have your agent CTO, your agent VP of engineering, DevOps, like you'd have all these agents that do everything for you.
Yeah. Oh, that would be. And what do you make of the OpenClaw acquisition? What that company's going to do?
I think AI will use it to discover a lot of new practical. I see it as like innovation chaos.
Yeah.
So as long as they, I'm sure with the acquisition, they're very well protected from liability. And I think they already were. I think anyone using it, they have some pretty stern liability warnings because
Hmm.
that's the concern with something like that is for all the miracles you see, you're probably going to have 10 nightmares
Yeah.
of things that people they got over their skis. But
Hmm.
I'm sure OpenAI will use it as kind of a fountain of new ideas and potentially new products.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, Jepson, this was great, man. Thanks for reconnecting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good luck in the startup grind. It's
You
definitely
too. Yeah. It's a grind for